first time Lisa found the button, she thought nothing of it. A small, round black button lay on her nightstand, the thread still damp as if freshly sewn. She flicked it away, dismissing it as some random sewing scrap. After all, she had barely survived a fatal car crash 2 nights ago. Her mind was still foggy from painkillers and trauma. That night, the nightmares began. She found herself standing in an endless corridor, dimly lit by an eerie, flickering glow. The walls were stitched together like a massive quilt, uneven and grotesque. The air reeked of rust and something else, something foul, like rotting cloth. Then she saw him. A hunched figure lurked in the darkness, his face obscured except for the glint of rusted needles at his fingertips. He moved without sound, only the faint whisper of thread being pulled through fabric breaking the silence. Lisa tried to scream, but her mouth wouldn't open, stitched shut by invisible hands. She awoke with a start, her hands clutching at her lips. They were free, but her heart pounded against her ribs like a trapped bird. The room was dark, eerily silent, save for the faint ticking of her bedside clock. Then she saw it. Another button, placed carefully on her pillow. Lisa's breath caught in her throat. She grabbed the button and hurled it across the room, scrambling for her phone. It was 3:17 a.m. Her fingers trembled as she typed a message to her best friend Jake. "Something is wrong. Someone's in my house." The typing bubbles appeared for a few moments before Jake replied. "Lisa, what are you talking about?" She hesitated before sending another text. "I keep finding these buttons in my room. I had a nightmare. There was a man with needles for fingers. I think he's real, Jake." There was a long pause before Jake responded. "Stay where you are. I'm coming over." Lisa sat up, pulling the covers tightly around her. She could still feel the weight of the dream pressing down on her chest. It wasn't just a dream. It felt too real. The shadows in her room seemed to shift, elongate. The buttons, they weren't just appearing. They were being left. By him. Jake arrived 20 minutes later, breathless and irritated. "Lisa, what the hell is going on?" he asked, rubbing sleep from his eyes. She showed him the button, now lying where she had thrown it. "It was on my pillow," she whispered. The thread was wet, like it had just been sewn. Jake sighed, raking a hand through his messy hair. "You're traumatized from the accident. Maybe you're imagining things." Lisa shook her head vehemently. "No, Jake, it's real. In the dream. I saw him." "Saw who?" She swallowed hard. "The button-eyed Reaper." Jake's face paled. "Where the hell did you hear that name?" Lisa frowned. "What do you mean?" He hesitated before answering. "That's an old urban legend. A story about a man who was supposed to die but cheated death. They say the Grim Reaper stitched his eyes shut with buttons so he could never see the afterlife. But he escaped. Now he hunts people who were supposed to die but survived. He finishes what death couldn't." Lisa's blood ran cold. "Jake, I survived that crash. I wasn't supposed to." Silence hung between them like a noose. Then a soft creaking noise came from the hallway. Both of them turned toward the sound. A shadow flickered just outside Lisa's bedroom door, elongated and wrong, as if stitched from darkness itself. Lisa clutched Jake's arm. "He's here." Jake reached for the baseball bat he had brought with him. "Stay behind me." Slowly he inched toward the door and flung it open. The hallway was empty. "Maybe it was just," he started, but then he stopped. A single black button lay in the center of the hallway floor. The air grew thick, suffocating. Lisa gasped as a deep, guttural whisper crawled through the silence. "Huh, unfinished business." Jake swung the bat wildly, but it struck only air. The whisper came again, closer this time. "You weren't meant to wake up." Lisa stumbled backward, gripping her temples as if to stop the words from burrowing into her mind. Shadows pulled at her feet, stretching toward her. And then she saw him. The button-eyed Reaper stepped into the dim light. His eyes, or where his eyes should have been, were covered by crude black buttons, stitched into his pale, sagging skin. His fingers, rusted needles glinting in the dark, twitched hungrily. Lisa let out a strangled sob. Please, I don't want to die. The Reaper tilted his head. The whispering voice came again, but his lips never moved. You already should have. With unnatural speed, he lunged. Jake swung the bat, but the Reaper was faster. He knocked Jake aside effortlessly, sending him crashing into the wall. Lisa screamed, scrambling backward. But the Reaper was on her, his needle fingers reaching for her eyes. No! She shrieked, kicking wildly. A sharp pain lanced through her shoulder as the Reaper's needle fingers punctured her skin, pulling her toward him. She could feel the cold thread pressing against her cheek, the sensation of being stitched into silence. Lisa! Jake's voice cut through the suffocating dread. With the last of his strength, he grabbed a lamp and smashed it over the Reaper's head. The creature recoiled, hissing, as the light flickered wildly. Shadows danced across the walls, writhing like living things. Lisa seized the moment. She grabbed the bat from the floor and swung with everything she had. The impact sent the Reaper staggering backwards, his body unraveling at the seams like an old worn doll. The light! Jake gasped. Turn on all the lights! Lisa scrambled for the switch, flipping it on. The Reaper let out a terrible, echoing wail as the room flooded with brightness. His form convulsed, twisting violently, and then he was gone. Only the buttons remained, scattered across the floor like fallen teeth. Jake panted, clutching his side. Is it over? Lisa trembled, staring at the buttons. I don't think he's gone. But light, it weakens him. They sat there in silence, surrounded by the remnants of the nightmare. That night, neither of them slept. And in the quiet of Lisa's room, unseen by human eyes, a single black button reappeared on her pillow, its threads still wet, waiting for the final stitch.